What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. Thank you for joining in. And today we have the honor and privilege of being joined by Marco Polo. Thank you for coming through, sir.
What up? Thanks for
Yes.
having me.
Yes. So Marco Polo and Master Ace just put out the new Richmond Hell album. Definitely check it out. In stores worldwide, stream, download, purchase, vinyl, all kinds of stuff. So for you, since a lot of this album, the skits and some of the things are tied to your experience and your life, etc. What made you want to take that approach on the skits and the interludes in particular?
That was 100% Master Ace's idea. I would have never suggested to focus the album on my life, which we did on Brooklyn Story and Richmond Hill. So I trusted him, and he thought my story was interesting, and he thought I should share it. So I trusted him, and that's why we're here now with these concepts. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And since you've worked and done a lot of collaborative albums over the years,
hmm
uh, obviously Torre, Hannibal Stacks, Afro, others, Rush Jux, of course, and even Ace now multiple times. When you work with Ace, what's been the difference you see artistically, creatively that he brings, that puts him in his own category, his own style?
Um, Ace has so many things going on that he brings to the table as an artist. The art of making an album, which is a lost art, like a conceptual album, writing songs about things that really resonate with people, concepts or stories. I think he's a master at that. Um, yeah, and in a really cool way that seems to like reach a lot of people all over the world. Because when we go to Europe, he's got so many supporters and fans. It's really cool to see. But yeah, he's just a professional. He knows what he's doing, man. He's great at picking beats. He's great at making albums, and he's just consistently able to make music that people connect with. And I'm just here. I'm here to provide the musical landscape for whatever he wants to talk about next.
Okay. And then as the producer on Brooklyn Heights, uh, song from Richmond Hill, you have, he references Biz Markie. You guys put Biz Markie's voice and sounds and stuff throughout the song. So as a producer, when you add those type of things uh, to the finished product and you hear Ace referring to him, but not, explicitly saying picking boogers per se, what do you think that adds the extra dimensions to the song for the listener and then for you as an artist?
I mean, those are in very important little details that a producer has to listen for. So if Ace lays his verse and his lyrics and records his vocals, and I hear little things that I can accent with musical elements or, you know, a line from a song he's referencing, and I try it and I put it in there, I'm gonna do it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I knew that was a Biz Markie reference. Rest in peace. That was his Juice Crew affiliate and friend. So I was like, let me try and bring, accent some of the things he's saying. If you listen to Connections, we do it too. We put tons of lines and sound effects and things to accent what he's saying, and because he's saying so much, and sometimes it's hard to catch. You got to listen to it. So if we can put a Chuck D line or Ludacris or something like that, we're gonna do it.
Okay. Gotcha. And then was certified. I talked to Ace about this, but that was one beat in particular I was shocked that he rapped on. And he had told me you also were very surprised that he picked it. So what made you not think he would want it? And then once you started working on it, why do you think it works?
I don't know if I necessarily thought he wouldn't want it. It just wasn't something typical that I would make and send to him. I'm pretty sure my buddy Shiloh, after I made that beat, he probably influenced me sending it to him. Maybe he probably was like 100%. You should send that to Ace. And I think, Ace likes to try different things too. We've been doing this for a long time, so it's important to like change it up and take risks musically. Even though when I listen to that beat, it just sounds like some up-tempo b-boy shit to me. It's not like it's, so off the map. It still feels like some hip hop stuff, but tempo-wise it's a bit faster. So it all worked out. He picked it, and sometimes those little risks and trying different things result in amazing things, and Coast Contra just complemented it. So
Absolutely. So as a producer with Hero and Below the Clouds, Hero as Inspector Deck. Inspector Deck was famously on Gangster as Above the Clouds, which Ace references at the beginning of the song. So why did you have him on Hero, and how did that happen where he's not on Below the Clouds?
Good question. I mean, that was really ace. We just felt Deck was going to be good on Hero. It was one of the first joints we recorded to the album. We recorded for the album, sorry. So, yeah. Um, that's a good question. Did you ask Ace that question?
Well, that's for part two because he
I
had
think, but I also think you called it Below the Clouds because this, the voices and the beats say they reference weather and clouds. So by the time he recorded for that, Inspector Deck had already laid his verse for Hero. So that was that. So
okay.
yeah,
And Below the Clouds too. Uh, I didn't look into it to see if it's the same samples, but it also felt like somewhat reminiscent of a slowed down Jesus Walks beat. Do you hear that, or can you get that, or is that
I don't know if I hear that. If you got that, that's cool. Everyone like interprets music differently. It's definitely has nothing to do with that song or that sample. But if it makes you feel like that, maybe because of the voices, that's cool. I'm not mad at that. But yeah, they're completely different samples.
okay? And then Life Music is the single for Richmond Hill and has gotten a lot of great response that I've seen both online and talking to people and stuff. That being said, I wanted you to break down that balance of how do you work with Ace as far as the content, because on the one side this is a business and you're trying to sell and be make a living at it. On the other hand, it's talking about loving life and living a long time, and that's very atypical with rap. So how do you balance conveying those type of messages with delivering a great song?
I think me and Ace are still in the business of music and making music and touring because we don't think about the business when we're creating. We literally, it's the Latin. At no point have we ever sat down and said, we need to make something to sell more records. We need to make something to cross over. Like, we've never done that and we'll never do that. We literally just make music we want to hear. We're both hip hop heads and fans of hip hop and music, and we just literally try and make stuff that we love. That's it. There's no other. Obviously, we know this is how we make our living, but that has never, thankfully, been the driving force to the creative side of things ever. So thank God for that.
Yes. That being said, what why is that something that's never mattered to you?
Well, I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter. We obviously want our music to reach people and do well and be successful, but I just think people gravitate. People can hear it. Listeners aren't stupid, When artists go and deliberately do something that's unauthentically them, like it. You're like, I hear it all the time. I'm like, oh, they're trying to do a radio song. They're trying to do this. Like, music's the best when it feels good and it sounds natural for that artist, whatever it is. So I think essentially sticking to what me and Ace love, that's the selling point. We're not trying to trying to make a radio single. We're just trying to make music that you know touches people and resonates with people. And when I'm sitting down to make beats, I'm just trying to really impress myself. I'm trying to do something that I would want to bump and try things that I like.
Okay. And with Life Music speeches on there at the end, how and why did you guys get him on there?
That was a Masta Ace idea. He has a relationship with speech, and he asked him to get on that song and try some things. And yeah, we ended up using some of his vocals for the final version. Um, yeah, and that song's really cool because it gave Strickland an opportunity to speak on some life experiences and just in general.
And do you, as a producer, do you find yourself when it is a very personal, very topical thing, like health, for instance, in Strickland's instance, does that hit you harder, hit you in a different way? Does it mean more to you, or is it just the same as a super hilarious creative line?
I mean, for me, that song hits hard because sorry, for me that hits hard because Strickland's my brother and he had a rough year. So him talking about some of the things, while it might be kind of a general look at what was going on, I was there, so I know what he's talking about, and I was there. So it feels good that he overcame some of the things that were going on. But it's more about the message to people that um, to live your life to the fullest, and whatever message you get from that life is supposed to be an uplifting song. You know, to make you feel good, like you want to get up in the morning and go do stuff, be motivated. So
Yeah. And how, given that you saw it personally, when you hear this song, how does that affect you as a person?
I guess what I take away from that song is gratitude. If I had to say there was a message for it, is just to be grateful that I'm living. We've all everyone in life has things going on. Everyone's got some sort of issues. Nothing's perfect. We all have loss. We've all lost family members or friends to death, to disease. There's always struggles, and that's just like, for me, what I take from that song is, just do the best you can, and have gratitude for what you do have, and keep pushing. Not to sound corny, but keep going.
Absolutely. Okay. And then Heat of the Moment is a harder, slower beat that you have on Richmond Hill. And I think one of the things that I enjoyed about the album is the different sounds, the different feels and everything. So how did these collection of beats kind of work for you in the way that they did, as a package, realizing that you need to, make a thorough album that's going to have things that stand out, like Certified, for instance?
Heat of the Moment was just another beat that I made that I thought Ace would dig, and I sent it to him, and he picked it. And yeah, it's kind of like starting a puzzle when you do an album. It always starts with three or four joints, but I mean, really, to simplify the work process for me and Ace is I sit here and create beats, and after many years working with Ace, I'd like to think I have a good idea of what he likes and doesn't like. So if I make something that I know he might dig, it gets sent to him first. Like I send him beats before anybody else. Like I've let go of I don't send beats to a million artists. I'm not trying to work with a million MCs. There's definitely people I will send beats to, but I save the best or the cream of the crop of stuff that I do for Ace now that we're, kind of going in a group direction. So sometimes I know I'm like, oh, that sounds like an Ace beat. You gotta send that to him. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. And that's that. Yeah, I didn't make that for him. I just made that and knew that he might like it.
Okay. And how has uh, approaching sending him stuff first, does that affect your output? If you used to make 5 beats a day, now you're only making three. Like, does that affect it at all, or no?
No, I've never been a producer to make 5 beats in a day. That's just not my workflow. I'll be happy to make one beat that I like a day, and these days it's even less. Like I've barely been in the studio. Um, yeah, things are different for me now. I'm real motivated by projects and having a reason to create. It's not like when I first started making beats, I just made beats for the sake of making beats. But if there's not like a project I need to do or an artist that wants something, yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to get that inspiration. So um, I'm very much project driven. Um, yeah, and I'd rather come in here with a purpose sometimes and just do it because I got to do it.
And how, when, and why did that change for you?
Just getting older. But because of the many years of just making tons of beats, I've got this archive and library of beats, and I want to use them. So instead of like, I think as you get older, at least for me, I just work smarter instead of like harder. I got a lot of beats. Like I have a few albums worth of beats just sitting around that are really great. And so I come up here and I work when I feel like working as opposed to like forcing myself to do it, which is what I did for many years. Um, so yeah, if there's something I need to be up here for, I'm up here working my ass off, inspired. But yeah, just coming up here because like, oh, I'm a producer, I need to make beats. This doesn't work like that for me anymore.
And so what are you doing with that time that you're not using making beats like you used to?
Making sure my business is right, many other things, buying records, planning things out. Um, yeah, because it's great to do all this work, but what are you going to do with it? Now it's like I've done the work. I have all this material, this music. Now it's time to focus on planning what to do with that stuff. I want people to hear it. I don't want to leave this earth with 18,000 beats that just sit on my laptop. I want to like put all these years of work into something, whether that's a beat tape or an album with an artist or a drum kit. It's really just about figuring out what to do with the work I've done all these years.
Hmm. So given that, how do you balance not creating something with the business in mind, but then afterwards knowing that you have to take care of the business? How do you?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of this stuff is created before with just out of pure joy of an inspiration of all these. I have all these records in my room. That's where it starts. Um, but yeah, I think working for 15 years nonstop on beats, I have this crazy library. So now it's like, like if all goes well, me and Ace will do a third album, and we've got a big chunk of beats already picked out for that. It's already good because I've already been working for years. So he slowly picks beats. Um, so yeah, and yeah, just so many things going on now. I do a lot of sound design for Akai, which is a blessing, and I'm making all these expansions for producers to use in their beats. Yeah, it's different than how it was now.
And what do you get differently creatively out of those other endeavors?
Not really. Not really, because if I'm making a bunch of drum kits or expansions or things for producers, it's still the same process. Hey, Mark will make a bunch of sounds that a producer would hear and be like, I want to make beats with that. So, you know, all these years of owning my craft and coming up with a sound, and I think a lot of people know me for my drums, and that's essentially why I'm able to start working with some of these companies because producers want drums, and that's the backbone of hip hop, and that's my specialty. So now, when I'm creating songs or working with musicians to create songs or sounds that sound like samples, I'm just doing it. I'm making beats. I'm trying to like make beats that are dope, and then share those sounds with future producers to use in their songs and their beats.
Okay. And how or if at all as you reflect, did your early time when you were first getting to New York working in studios and stuff, how did that how does that affect or shape or mold what you do now, do you think?
I mean, it's all learning. It's all like I tell people all the time with production, making music. It's like a college or university with no graduation date. You're going to class forever. The moment you think you figured it out, you're done. Like I'm learning every day new tricks, how to make things sound better, how to design sounds, how to make things sound like, the feeling I get when I put the needle on a record and I hear a sample. How can I create that without sampling? Just so I know, because there's lots of legalities to music, and I've had many songs I couldn't make money with because they had uncleared samples, knock on wood. So now I'm owning, my job is to have as many tools as possible as a producer to deliver a product, whether I use records or I make it from scratch, or I work with musicians, and like, I don't want to be a one trick pony. So I spend all my time learning how to do a million things and being good at it, and that's what I love. I think that's the nerd. That's the beat nerd.
Gotcha. Okay. And on Richmond Hill, you got the Jordan Theory song, and that one I thought it was interesting because it goes right into the chorus, and then if I remember correctly, the verse when the first verse actually starts, it's not a clear delineation as far as musically or how Ace is flowing. So creatively, um, do you guys discuss that stuff beforehand, or does Ace just go in and do things and then you discuss it? Like, how does that process work?
Usually I structure a beat when I send it to Ace that has a clear hook and a clear verse, but sometimes he might not hear what I'm hearing, and he'll come and maybe start the verse in a part that I never thought would be the verse part, but I like it, so we roll with it. I think that's part of hip hop is breaking rules and not doing the typical thing. 8 bar hook, 16 bar verse. Like I think it's cool to ignore all that shit sometimes, and if it feels good and Ace starts rapping in a part that was supposed to be the hook, or he starts 1 bar later, sometimes those kind of things are cool. So. Um, we probably just decided whatever he was doing, wherever he started rapping, felt good and sounded good, so we rolled with it. And
Okay.
there's a video. That's the next video. Actually, I'm glad you said that. Jordan Theory video is coming soon.
Oh, I look forward to it. That's a song I thought was very interesting and had a lot of great imagery from Ace. So since Ace, as you know from before, you worked with him and has continued with your guys' collaborations, is very thematic and very concept driven. How does that uh, add any heft or any significance in your opinion, to what you guys do?
Can you repeat that question? I didn't process it correctly, I don't think.
Well, what I'm saying is concept albums, people do them sometimes, people don't do them, what have you. But within the concept albums, Ace also has all these super concepts, Jordan Theory being one of them, where he's breaking down the shoes and the idea behind the methodology and the socioeconomics of things and all these different things, but it comes across, very succinctly, but very informative yet entertainingly. So when you realize this is what Ace does, and Ace brings a certain level, a heightened level of intellect to the music itself, when you're working on the stuff, does that give you any
Steel, yeah,
pause?
steel sharpens steel. That's how I like to say it. You know,
Okay.
Ace is not an ordinary guy, and I can't make him ordinary beats. So the fact that I know he's always trying to do something interesting or tell a story, it pushes me to make beats that are not so generic. I got to push myself to make things interesting musically. I know the type of instruments he likes. I know the vibes he likes, and it, allows me to put allows me to try things like a beat like Jordan Theory. Like that's not a sample. Like I was just me bugging with a bunch of synths and just having fun and making something interesting, and he liked it. And yeah, I just you have to imagine that we've been doing this. He's been writing raps for 30 plus years. I've been making beats for 20 years. Like, what do artists do to not get bored? I often find myself making the same beat and stopping myself and saying, no, I've done that. I've done that pattern. So now do this pattern. Just try. Like, what's more interesting, right? Because, and sometimes you produce cool results, changing things up. And I think he rides with whatever progression I have in my beats and I'm changing, he's also changing too. So it always kind of connects. So, yeah.
So when you find yourself uh remaking a beat or doing it too similar to one that you've done before, do you just totally scrap it or do you figure out ways to tweak it so you can use it?
It depends. It depends. I've definitely many times started a beat and was like talking to myself, like, Marco, you've done this beat. Like, done. Move on. That happens a lot, But artists, we overthink sometimes. I try and let things flow regardless. But, there's definitely a certain type of beat that I feel like I've made many times, and I try to not do that if I've already done it. So that's what literally sets off making a beat like certified. If you listen to the drums and the pattern, it's still a break beat chopped up, but like the pattern is not typical boom boom cack, which is a typical boom bap pattern. Like I love that. I'm a boom bap head, but I like to like change it up. And when you do that, it allows artists to try different things when they write songs and how they, the flow and that to me is, you know, I want people to be like, "What the fuck is that? That sounds like hip hop, but like some shit I never heard." Like that's the goal, you know.
Right. No, and that's why I thought certified in particular was such an interesting choice from both of you to have on Richmond Hill because it's a very atypical feel, sound, style for Ace to
Yeah.
use.
Well, then we achieved it, right? This is, I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it still sound like a hip hop joint, but yeah, it got a different bounce. It's more up tempo. It's, you know, that's the goal. That's always the goal.
Yes. Now, on Richmond Hill, also you have the Scarborough skit talking about weed being a gateway drug. Obviously,
I'm laughing. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm laughing because I've gotten shit about this line from different friends.
we'll break it down. Why?
Shouts to one of my closest friends, DJ Skiz, also an amazing producer and DJ. No bias, but he hates that I said that. Primo does not like that I say that because they disagree. They disagree. For the record, Ace wrote the script for me to read, so it's kind of embellished. Not all of it is actually factual or true. I don't think I ever drove to Scarborough to get drugs, but he wanted to paint the picture, right? So in Ace's mind, that was just something, weed is a gateway drug. That's a whole conversation on another day with people that smoke weed because, there's some people that would agree smoking weed would lead you to other drugs, and there's some people that would say, absolutely not. You can smoke weed and you'll be cool. So I don't really have an opinion on it. For me, it definitely was a gateway drug because it started with weed and then I started doing other things. but I was also very young. So, you know, in general, I don't know how to answer that question. There's no right or wrong. I think everyone's experiences, there's some people that can have a beer on the weekend and then Monday they go back to work and they're functioning people in society. Then there's some people that have a beer on Friday night and then they have another one and then they have 30 and then they black out and they can't function casually drinking. So everyone's situation is different. People can smoke weed and then they're fine, and other people smoke weed and then they're like, weed doesn't get me high anymore. Now I gotta fucking do acid and do coke, and that doesn't work. So that, everyone is different. So I don't think you can have a blanket statement to say weed is a gateway drug for everybody. Some people yes, some people no.
Well, that's part of why I thought it was an interesting statement, because I've heard very impassioned arguments on either side.
Yeah.
But for you, as you got the feedback that you did get, did it make you laugh? Did it
Yeah,
frustrate you? Like,
it's funny to me because I don't care either way. I don't have an opinion on it. Like I said, it's just like, but it definitely triggered some of my weed smoking friends. They're like, it's not a gateway drug. That's cool. Like, it's not for you. My story was different. My theory is with things like that is, for me personally, it's not worth the risk either way. Like, I don't need to be smoking weed. I miss it sometimes, but it never did anything good for me. So, like, why even do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I quit drinking and doing drugs, I think I was able to shift that addictive side of my personality into music. And that's why I'm here right now. I put that energy into this. So that was a positive flip of an addictive personality. That's my journey though, and it's not, I wouldn't just have a blanket statement that says that's the case for everybody when it comes to smoking weed. So all my weed head friends, that was just my experience. Smoke your weed.
well, that also ties into the PPE, though, I thought rather nicely. With poor people everywhere and talking about the junkies and the pushers and everything. And this ties into not only that specifically, but the Life with Life music. With Ace, there so much in the media, just forget rap, is about this death and negativity and drugs and all this chaos that goes on in the world. And you guys, I think, are providing a light on that on the one hand, but also a great alternative with live music and some of the other songs on Richmond Hill. So the balance of that and the reality of the addiction and all these other things that are going on as an artist, is it more just for you about creating the art, or is it more about having important things to say sometimes? How do you look at that?
I want to give you fancy answers for these questions, but really, we just, like, I knew that particular beat for P.P.E. That's special because, without incriminating myself, Ace gave me some 45s that I may or may not use for some of the album beats, and so that was a cool one to kind of chop up some things from that for P.P.E. But I knew right away when I heard those voices, I'm like, oh, I can use these voices. And I know that, you know, anytime you have vocal samples for the most part, it kind of sets a theme for an MC or a writer to be like, oh, it's saying this. I'm going to write the song about this. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. I sent it to Ace and he got it. He understood. And he totally went there 100% and it came out amazing. That beat reminds me of something you may have heard on Disposable Arts, just the vibe of that. Um, but yeah, we're just trying to have fun, man. I'm trying to have fun when I make beats and just do shit that I've never done before. And then when Ace likes it, it's great. It becomes a song, and I'm like, oh man. So it's not really that scientifical. There's no thinking beforehand. It's not like, you know, yeah. It's just me having fun, and then whatever translates and the beats reaches Ace. He either likes it or he doesn't, and it becomes a song or it goes to another artist.
Gotcha. Okay. That being said, sonically, as you look back with the Brooklyn story versus Richmond Hill, what would you say are the kind of the sonic themes that are similar and different in your opinion?
That's a great question. So the different thing about this album is I had Shy the Beat Yoda mix most of the Richmond Hill album and then Ricardo master it, which is different than the first album. I think the new album sounds really good. I'd be interested to hear. So far, all the feedback has been real positive and amazing. I've had no one, say anything but but good feedback. So I think we elevated the sound, if anything. I think things sound real good. So let's see what the people think over time. Brooklyn Story was really well received, so it's always difficult for artists to like top the first album. But I think we have successfully delivered something that is of equal quality. Some people are even saying better. Time will tell. The people decide what's a classic or not. We don't. We just give it to you. Here's the plate of food. Either you like it or you don't like it.
That is for sure. And the people will let you know their opinion more than ever.
Absolutely, they will. Trust me. The internet, social media, people will not hold back.
Yes. So at the same time, too, it does seem, I've been following your career a long time since the inception, basically. It does seem like you've also put out less music lately. Is there, is that because of the Akai and some of the other things, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because of Akai, and I've just been zoned into doing work with them, and also straight up working in music and hip hop, and it could be exhausting because as a producer, unless you're like in the top 5% um, of popping, I call them popping producers, like you have to pursue MCs and give them beats and see if they want to use them and chase people, and sometimes that could be very uninspiring. I'm fortunate that I have years in the game and I've made good relationships with a lot of amazing MCs that want to work with me and seek me out or want to collaborate because of my skills. And that's what it's all about. But that's like an earned privilege because, when you first start out, you have to send your beats to artists you're unknown. You have to pursue them. You have to keep pushing and sending beats, and people don't hit you back. It's like a process, which is what I did when I started, when nobody knew who I was. I had to shop my beats, and now it's less about shopping and more about connecting with the relationships I've built with MCs like a Torre, a Masta Ace, Pharaoh, um, and then I still pursue some newer artists through contacts and people at labels, but it's really about locking in with Ace and focusing on the sound design right now. That's where I'm at, to be honest. I want to try and send more beats out to like major labels in the future, but for now, I'm happy where I'm at.
Well, there it is. All right.
There it
Well,
is.
Marco Polo, thanks so much. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Thanks for having me. And if you're not familiar with our work or my work, go check us out. New album, Richmond Hill, in stores now and available everywhere.
Well, there it is. Thanks so much, Marco Polo. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.